الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. يقول الله سبحانه وتعالى إنهم إن يظهروا عليكم يرجموكم أو يعيدوكم في ملتهم ولن تفلحوا إذا أبدا. فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار ثم أما بعد. In today's khutbah, inshallah ta'ala, I would like to share with you some thoughts and some observations that I've taken from different sources and different ulama about an ayah that is personally close to my heart. This is an ayah that belongs to Surah Al-Kahf. This is the 20th ayah of Surah Al-Kahf. And for many of you who are accustomed to reciting Surah Al-Kahf on a weekly basis, you probably recognize it. I recited it in the Muqaddimah of my surah in the beginning. And in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling something very powerful about these young people who are described in Surah Al-Kahf. These young people lived in a society where overwhelmingly that society was dominated by kufr, by disbelief, and by shirk. And it was not a society of Muslims. These young people, these fityah, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes them, were able to hold on to their Islam and were able to hold on to their Iman, even though everything about that society was calling them to the opposite of Islam. They were still able to maintain their Iman. And of course, at the end of it all, when their life was threatened, they found refuge in a cave. Many of you are familiar with this story. This khutbah is not about the story itself. It is actually about one very small part of this narration that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us Himself, and He decided that this should be the part of eternal guidance of the Quran, the timeless guidance of the Quran. I hold this story entirely dear to my heart because for young people especially, this is the place in the Quran where youth will find guidance. This is one of those special places in the Quran where youth living in a difficult society and are trying to hold on to the Islam to find guidance. So now, as they wake up, Allah has put them to sleep for many, many years. فَلَبِسُوا فِي كَفِّهِمْ 300 سِنِينَ وَازْدَادُوا تِسْعًا. 309, for so many years they're out, they sleep. And when they wake up, they feel hungry. And they talk about, what should we do, how should we go out, and we should get some food, and they have this conversation. So they pick one of them and give whatever money they have, and they're sending him out. After having a discussion in the previous ayah, an ayah I am not sharing with you today, they had a discussion about who should go, how should they behave, how should they go. وَلَيَطَلَطَّفْ وَلَا يُشْعِرَنَّ بِكُمْ أَحَدًا. Be very, very careful. Watch your step. Don't let people know. Because they thought the authorities were looking for them. They're fugitives. They're hiding from law. So when you go out, be a little covert. Don't be too little obvious. And don't let anybody realize who you really are. Be extra careful. All this extra advice is being given to this one guy who is getting food for everybody else. But as he leaves, one last advice is given to him. As he goes back to the society, one last advice is given to this young man, and this is the advice that I want to base my entire khutbah today on. إِنَّهُمْ إِيَظْهَرُوا عَلَيْكُمْ يَرْجُمُوكُمْ أَوْ يُعِيدُوكُمْ فِي مِلَّتِهِمْ وَلَنْ تُفْلِحُوا إِذًا أَبَدًا. One statement, and it begins with إِنَّهُمْ. You see, Arabic language is very powerful. The word inna is used, they say harfu tawqid. It's used rhetorically for a couple of reasons. It's used by someone who completely believes in what they're about to say. You know, they're confident about what they're about to say. And it's also used when a person you are talking to is not so sure. You know, they say harf inna yufidu izalat ash-shak. One of the benefits is that it removes doubt. Removes kind of, I'm not so sure, I'm a little skeptical. I don't think what you're about to tell me is so serious. It's not such a bad of a deal type of attitude. So if you want to make someone realize that what I'm about to tell you is something super important, you better make a big deal out of it. It's not something small, I'm telling you, use inna in Arabic. Especially in Old Arabic. So one of the youth is saying to this young guy who is going to go back out there is no doubt about it. I want you to understand very clearly the threat I'm about to warn you is not a slight possibility. It's an absolute danger. Those people that you're going to go out into, you know, in yadharu alaykum, if it happens that they find out about you. Dhahara ala is complex language, I'll take a minute to explain. It means to overpower someone, to go after someone, to catch up and defeat someone. I want you to think of an image of two people fighting. You know, and one of them has taken such a beating that he's down on his knees and he shows his back. Because dahara literally is the back. So dahara ala is used when you beat someone down and they're on the ground, they're on their knees and they've been defeated. Another meaning of dahara ala is to become dahir, to become obvious if they find out who you really are, if they discover who you really are. Before I go further, you have to understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the word in. And this use is being quoted by using the word in, if, which you translate it as if, not either, when. When they find out about you, this and this will happen, he didn't say that. He said, if they find out about you. If they find out about you. So the threat is real, the danger is real, but it's not inevitable. It's not guaranteed that you'll get into trouble, there is a possibility. You know, what we learn from word in is that the believer, even though there are dangers and there's fitna and there's trouble, we don't have to be pessimistic. We don't have to say, yes, there is danger, there is trouble, there's fitna, I'm going to fall into it anyway. A lot of young people are like that. They say, you know, man, society is so messed up, everywhere I turn, there are girls, everywhere I turn there are drugs, and all my friends are doing this and that. It's everywhere, I can't help it. There's no escape. If there was no escape, the word idha would have been used. If there is an escape, then in is used. If this happens, not when this happens. When is inevitable. It's bound to happen. They didn't deny that there is fitna out there, but they said there is a possibility you will fall into it, and there's a possibility you'll be safe. So be extra careful, and the threat is very real. إِنَّهُمْ إِيَّذْحَرُوا عَلَيْكُمْ. So what are the two things that might happen if they find out about you? What are the two things that might happen to this young man when he goes back to the society, he's discovered and they overpower him, arrest him, they beat him up, etc. Possibility number one, يَرْجُمُوكُمْ. They'll stone you to death, rajam. They will execute you, they will kill you. Now this seems like it's not something that would happen in our society in America. I mean, there are young people who are holding on to the Islam, and it's not like somebody is trying to kill us, you know, if you hold on to Islam. It may not be the case, but it's a big reality in many parts of our ummah today, isn't it? Somebody even holding on to the Islam looks like a threat. What's happening to young people in Syria who are holding on to the Islam? What's happening to youth in Misr nowadays, in Egypt? This is a reality. You know, when young people are clearly holding on to their religion, there are some in society that hate that. They don't mind old people coming to masjid. They don't mind an 80-year-old coming and praying Fajr in the masjid. They don't care. But when you have an 18-year-old, when they see young people, more and more of them coming and attending Jummah, not like catching the Salah in the second rak'ah, but they're coming before the khutbah begins and they actually listen to the whole thing. When they see this kid spending a lot of time in the masjid reciting Quran, 20-year-old, 22-year-old, you know, when they see young people who are not shaking their beard in front of a mirror for 4 hours, turning into a tiny little pencil, they actually have a beard on their face. They don't care about fashion statement. All they want to do is to follow the sunnah of Prophet ﷺ. And there are some in some societies, they get really worried. They get very threatened by that. And this threat is even ancient. Even back then, if they see you holding on to your Islam, wearing your Islam, making your Islam obvious, they would stone you to death. You know? This is the first danger. And for them, the danger was immediate. It was not some possibility. Obviously, the court has decided that these people are supposed to be executed. Right? So they were on the death row. So when he's going back, it's very real for him that this might happen if he gets caught. So that's possibility number one. But then an even bigger danger is mentioned. And the second danger is in the ayah. The same youth is telling his friend, listen to me very carefully, bro. When you go out there, you might get stoned to death. If they catch you, but that's not that bad. Because even if they stone you to death and you'll be killed, you'll be shaheed and you'll end up in Jannah. I mean, that's bad, but it's not that bad, right? Because at the end of it all, you are still successful. Here's another danger when you go back out there. And it's even more dangerous than being stoned to death and being killed. This is the danger I want to talk to you about today. He says, أَوْ يُعِيدُكُمْ فِي مِلَّتِهِمْ. I will give you a simple, modern American translation first, and then we'll dive into details. They will assimilate you. They will integrate you. They'll make you one of them, and you won't be able to tell where Islam ends and where the kufr begins. They'll make you one of them. You know, this is a modern American translation I'm giving you. Let's explore the words. أَوْ يُعِيدُكُمْ, or they will bring you back. هؤلاء الشباب كانوا كفارا فأصبحوا مسلمين. You know, these young men, they used to be kuffar. They used to be in that lifestyle. They were living it up. They were partying, you know. Young people who do not have Islam, there is nothing haram. Nothing is forbidden to you. You can do whatever you want. You know, like the Prophet ﷺ says, "Ad-dunya sijnul mu'min wa jannatul kafir." You know, the dunya, this world is a prison for the believer. This is haram. You can't do that. You can't look over there. You can't drink this. You can't smoke that. You know, there are restrictions. But for kafir, everything is halal. He doesn't have to check the ingredients. You know, he doesn't have to think twice about doing something. He can do whatever he wants. These young people were young people, guys hanging out together, and they knew what kufr meant. They knew what it was. Have you seen young people on the street, young people non-Muslim, you know, hanging out together late at night? You would cross the street, you would go the other way. Because you don't know what to expect from them. You don't know what they're capable of. They can do whatever they want. Especially when they're together, it gets worse. When there's one guy by himself, it's bad. When there are 10 of them, it's trouble. It's just trouble. So now it says, one of the dangers is that they will pull you back into your kufr. They'll take you back to the way you used to be. Because right now your iman is strong. Because you're with your brothers. But you go into the city by yourself. And when young man is in a good company and he's by himself and he's not in a good company, his iman is in trouble. You know? And he can't find the bad company he used to hang out with, and you know, and they might tempt you again. They'll put you into some fitness situation. You'll go back to the city and you meet some old friends that you used to do some bad things with, and they're like, you know, come on, man, let's just have a chat. Let's have a couple of drinks. Let's sit down and talk. You know. So there is a threat that you might be tempted to go back into that lifestyle. You might start asking yourself, man, ever since I've become a Muslim, you know, the life has become so hard, they're trying to kill me, I have to live in a cave, it's not even comfortable to sleep, you know, we can't even find our food. You know, why did I take all this trouble? My life is so much easier when I was a kafir, it was so much easier. Why don't they just go back and let things be the way they used to be? And the believer, a Muslim might be thinking, I'll never be like that. My iman is not that weak, I can handle it. I can go out there and manage myself. But you know what? The ayah is saying this, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has reported this as part of the Quran. This advice that one brother is giving to his other brother, this advice is so powerful that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decided that for every generation of Muslims until the day of the judgment, they should take from this advice. Which means the threat is real. Our iman is as strong as we think it is. Even then we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, رَبَّنَا لَا تُذِغْ قُلُوبَنَا بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَيْتَنَا. Allah, don't let our hearts get deviated after you have guided us. Just because you have guidance now, you're not guaranteed to have guidance tomorrow. And especially for young people who might have a past, and that past might come back and might tempt you. And shaitan may even make you think about it. Like, some of you made tawbah, you used to have a wild past, and you made tawbah, and you have changed your life. You're not like that anymore. But sometimes shaitan comes and, man, you miss those days? What we used to do? Well, there was so much fun. Too bad it's hard. But I wish. It's not you having those wishes, it's shaitan feeding you those wishes. وَلَا أُمَنِّيَنَّكُمْ, I will fill them with wishes, he says. And that's the time to say, أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. That's the time to say that, young. Something important I have to share with you in regards to this ayah, I have used the word assimilation. In the United States, when you go to high school and you take American history class, right? It's one of the phrases that is used in sociology to describe American culture, American society. Different people, different nationalities come together to the United States, and after, several generations, they're just American. They used to be French and Chinese and Arab and Indonesian and Pakistani, but 2-3 generations down the road, they're just Americans. They all have the same values. But you know what? There are some communities that are able to hold on to their traditions more. Like in cities like New York or Chicago, you have, Greek communities that have been Greek communities for 40 years. There are Chinese communities that have been Chinese communities for 50, 60 years. There are some communities in Queens where all the street signs are in Bangla, and everyone speaks in the Bangla. But you know what? There is still assimilation, because assimilation, is not about what, it's not about I want to keep my language, I want to keep my traditional clothing. That's not a problem. You can keep whatever clothes you want. Real problem in assimilation is when your definition of what is right and what is wrong changes. You could dress in Eastern clothing or Western clothing, but if your definition of what is appropriate and what is not appropriate, what's permissible and what's not permissible, what's good and what's evil, when those definitions start changing, then there's a problem. It's not a problem if you're not eating traditional desi food anymore and your kids now want to eat pizza and burgers. It's not a problem. The problem is when they do not care about halal and haram anymore. That's the problem. When they do not care about fairness anymore. When they do not care about haya anymore. When they do not, care about watching their tongue anymore. When they do not care about backbiting anymore. When they do not care about consumption anymore. When these things start to change, that's when you've lost a generation. That's when the problem happens. You can have, people of different cultures and different backgrounds, but they're still assimilating. Not by tongue, not by language, but by the values. Values are the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us in this deen. These are the qiyam of Islam, the values of Islam. The value of salat, for example. When the young generation has lost its salat, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes, وَخَلَفَ مِنْ بَعْدِهِمْ خَلْفٌ أَضَاعُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَاتَّبَعُوا الشَّهَوَاتِ فَسَوْفَ يَلْقَوْنَ غَيًّا. An unworthy generation came after them that wasted the salat. They didn't have any value for the prayer. That's a lost generation. So what if they speak your local language? It doesn't mean anything. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this ayah, they will take you back. But take you back into what? Fi millatikum. The word millah is translated, some mufassirun call it deen, yani religion. They will take you back into your old religion. But millah, the Arabic word, there are many derivations from that word. Millah is also, they say, maliltu minhu in Old Arabic. I hate that guy, I can't stand him. Millah also means you have love for something, and that love is driven by your hate of something else. We are a millah of Ibrahim alayhi salam because we love tawheed and we hate shirk. But when kuffar are a millah, they also love something and hate something. We love Tawheed and hate Shirk. What do they love and what do they hate? They love their desires. They love the culture of doing whatever you want. This narcissistic, I am above all, the Ananiya culture, I'm above all, they love that. And they hate anyone who goes against that. The first thing we say in Salat, when we start the Salat, is Allahu Akbar. We put our ana, I, aside. We make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala supreme, not ourselves. We put ourselves as secondary, put our faces on the ground, and we say Subhana Rabbi A'la. We are a culture, we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most high when we are in the most low, when we're in sajdah. Subhanallah. And you have a millah of kufr that wants to put itself, what I want to eat, what I want to look at, how I want to, how I'm to live my life, my lifestyle, my choices, I. That's first for them. And they hate anything that goes the other way. They hate anything that goes to the other side. And the biggest threat they see is young people that can deny the temptations. Because when you're young, you're strong, you're capable, you're good looking, you're independent. All these things are in your favor and you can do whatever you want. And even though dunya is in your hands, you still drop it and you prefer, you say, I prefer Islam. They see it as a threat. They see that other people might be attracted to this lifestyle. They might not want to live the life of animals anymore. So they come after the young people and they want them to assimilate. So you will find Muslim youth in America, in Australia, in Britain. They're living in societies that are predominantly non-Muslim societies. And I don't call them evil societies. There is nothing wrong with English language. There's nothing wrong with getting education, in America or in any of these Western countries. There's nothing wrong with much of the things we enjoy in this country. You know what's wrong? It's when we start taking values that are in contradiction to the values that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. That's what's wrong. That's what's unacceptable. We don't take good values from the Western societies because Western societies have some very good values. A lot of Western societies have more transparency in government and more cleanliness on streets than most Muslim societies. They do. We don't learn that. And those are original Islamic values, But what we learn is how to dress, what music to listen to, what movies to watch. Please come forward. Let's make some room for our brothers, inshallah. What we take is how to dress and what to listen and what to watch, and somehow we think that we become more westernized. And westernized means more advanced. Westernized means you're impressed with something that has no values. Like it's something so amazing. You're somehow more sophisticated than other people because from doing whatever you're doing. So a young man goes to high school in America. And he comes from a Muslim country, and back home he used to memorize Quran and he used to attend a hadith halaqa after the morning fajr, and then he comes to America and he goes to high school, and at that point he doesn't even speak much English, right? And he hears all the cursing and all the filthy language and all the guys and girls together. In the beginning he's like, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. His Islam rejects it. But, he has that reaction. But that's first week, second week, third week. What happens after 6 months? You can't even tell him from other non-Muslim kids. He assimilates. He accepts. He says, man, this is how it's supposed to be. In the beginning, he's disturbed. His fitna rejects it. His Islam rejects it. But he says to himself, how much can I avoid it? It's everywhere. Let me just live my life. Let me just be like these people. Let me be just like one of them. I don't want to be different. People hate being different. These guys, the advice brother gave to his brother was, man, we are different, don't forget that. And don't be ashamed of being different. We are Muslims. So don't go back to that lifestyle. And these guys had a taste of kufr first. They knew what the thug life was like. They knew what gangster life was like. They knew what clubbing was like. They knew. And they still don't want to go back because they know that Iman is sweeter than those things. Yes, young man, yes, young woman, you are different. You are not the same as everybody else. And what they have is not better than what you have. What you have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you is better. It's superior. You should feel sorry for the people who live that kind of life. You shouldn't want to be like them. You should feel sorry for them. You should wish they had what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. You don't go to high school to assimilate. You go to high school to get others to Islam. Well, others should come to Islam because of you. You shouldn't go to kufr because of them. You're supposed to change them. أَوْ يُعِيدُوكُمْ فِي مِلَّتِهِمْ. They will integrate you. They'll pull you back into their lifestyle, their religion, their values. And then you will start hating Islam. And you'll start hating everyone who reminds you of it. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. In one ayah, Allah Azza wa Jal has protected the culture of youth. In one ayah of Surah Al-Kahf. This is the 20th ayah of Surah Al-Kahf. I encourage everyone to especially memorize the beginning of the surah and to reflect upon what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us through the surah. This is telling our story. It's not just some historical incident. It's telling our story. May Allah Azza wa Jal protect our young people from the kinds of fitna and make them a source of encouraging and strengthening of the deen for each other. May Allah Azza wa Jal make our youth those whom Ummah is proud of and they carry the flag of Islam the way it's supposed to be carried. May Allah Azza wa Jal make our young people the examples of Islam to the rest of society. So instead of them being attracted to the life of kufr, those who are lost in kufr and are drowning are attracted to the life of Islam. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات